Do men's sheds matter? That's the question. So I hope you're going to join me. I'm going to go for a little walk for a couple of minutes, and I'm up here in the men's shed in Gweedore in West Donegal. It's freezing this morning here. It might be 3 or 4 degrees here. So I decided to go walking on our lovely walking machines. We've got some age-appropriate training equipment in here. So it's an exercise for me to see how my pulmonary function works when I'm chatting to you. But anyway, do men's sheds matter? That's the topic. So maybe do a bit of movement when you're listening to me, and just keep yourself active. So yeah, I mean, I joined this men's shed 10 years ago when we set up here about 2015. And I'd moved to the area. And the wonderful thing about the men's shed for me was it was a great way of meeting other men in the area. And it gave me great context into doing various bits and pieces when I needed work done or whatever. People were able to give me advice. So it was wonderful for me. And what I've essentially seen both in this men's shed and throughout the country, because as I've travelled around the country, I've dropped into many men's sheds, and the one common thing has been the warm welcome and the cup of tea. The other thing that stood out is that men's sheds are like families. They're all different in their own way. So that's something I have to bear in mind, that men's sheds are unique in themselves. Some of them have different shapes of buildings, resources, types, etc. But there is that commonality of warmth and friendship. I'm 70 years of age this year in a couple of weeks' time. And I'm thinking back on the world in which I grew up, the world of older certainties, a job for life. Often men went into careers that their fathers and grandfathers were in before them. I remember when I worked in the railway in Inchicore in Dublin, in the foundry, there were 4 generations of men in the foundry at the same time. Young man of maybe 15 years of age coming on as an apprentice. And his great grandfather, I think that's right, was 65, was just going into retirement a couple of weeks later. So the other thing, it was a world where there was a sort of a religious certainty. We were brought up in a framework of some sort of religion where he believes in the afterlife and the power of a weaning power of God and the karma of good, and that justice would be done and all that sort of stuff. The other thing is that the idea of man's role in society and the family was fairly well defined. You know, I grew up expecting to be a breadwinner to provide for my family. And then in the norm of the time, in 1994, the average white male Caucasian's life expectancy was 72 years of age. So you're expected to live your life, get to 65, get the clock, roll off, have a couple of years and then die. There's been a lot of changes since then, massive changes. And particularly since the crash in 2008, and after which the whole idea of the men's shed seemed to emerge. And one of the issues I have with that is that, you know, while men's sheds and the image of men's sheds has been very positive, I feel that part of the narrative that grew up with it, that there was this, you know, it's a stigma attached. You went to a men's shed because you were suffering, you know, either depression or isolation, or didn't have a job, or you were lonely or whatever. And I think that's been, that's part of the image that doesn't apply for me at all. It's not why I joined the shed. I think the reason you might go to a shed is to prevent all those things happening, to be honest with you. I'm just thinking here, just checking my pulmonary function, that I'm at 4 kilometers an hour, so I might just push it up to 5. Just want to see how my breathing and talking can happen at the same time. However, in 2025, there's been a massive difference in our society. I mean, the idea of a job for life no longer exists. The idea of one career for life. The idea for men now, I mean, young men growing up won't have those older certainties of religion. And I'm going to slow it down a wee bit now, just slow it down at 4.3 kilometers an hour, guys, right? But at least it's warming me up here. So the idea of, I said, even the role in a family. I mean, we have dual breadwinner families, etc. So the role of men had, the disposability of men is a much more impactful reality than it ever was before. And the other thing is the place that men socialised in. You know, and it was a period of time in the railway, for example, the club was the workman club down beside the works in Inchicore. So men gathered there, they gathered in snooker halls, they went to the pub for a drink in the evening or whatever. That was regarded as a kind of norm. All those things have changed. The nature of industry has changed. The nature of even physically going into a job as regards remote work, and that has changed. And that brings huge challenges in terms of socialization and mental health for men. So while the sheds have served me really well at this time, and 10 years ago I was 60 and I'm 70 now, that means the men who are in this shed are those who are 70 are in their 80s now, and the needs of those men change as we get older. And the other thing is it really creates a chasm of hers. Where's the future generation of men going to come into, and what's the world going to look like for them? The other thing I feel is when I was asked to be chairman of our shed in 2015, which I served for 5 years, and I took on the role with two undertakings, that everybody agreed that we'd still be here 5 years later in 2020, and that we would strive to leave the place better than we found it. So for me, that was the purpose of being in the shed. It's about enjoying the present and leaving a legacy for who's coming after you. So one of the things that drives me is the vision of Shed 2030. What will sheds in 2030 be like? And particularly looking at the age group of men who by 2030, born before 1980, will be 50 years and older. And where have they come from? To a large degree, most of those will have grown up where the idea of the religious background and certainty of the afterlife, that's not a normal part of the conversation. Having experience of drugs and alcohol, particularly drugs, will not be surprising to a lot of those guys. The idea of having a single career throughout your life, no, that went out a long time ago. And the idea that you might even have a job in the next number of years, particularly at a stage when you get to 50 years of age, you don't think you're Roy Keane anymore. You're not going to play with Man United. And you're moving into that other phase of your life. And like the conversation amongst all of the mental health professionals is that the tsunami of mental health problems coming down the road for our society, and I'm dealing with men in this situation, is a monstrous one. How do we prepare for that? And I suppose my effort is how do we create a men's shed environment which is encouraging, welcoming, sustainable, and in alignment with the needs and expectations of men in 2030. And I'm aiming there that we should be looking at men in their 50s who still have the energy, physical energy and connections and maybe workplace connections to put the effort in to keep a shed going, because there's a lot of effort needed in putting shed so that can look after the older men. I mean, at that stage I'd be in my mid to late 70s. So that the only way we're going to be looked after is if there are younger men around there coming and filling in their boots behind us. So that conversation is of critical value. Just to say, I mean, obviously men make up half of the population of Ireland, and men's health and well-being is everybody's business, not just men. I mean, the reality is women's business as well. Women have husbands, brothers, fathers, sons, and they care about them. And so, and the point is, of course, is do men care about themselves? I mean, I've served on the older persons executive in Donegal here for 3 years. And it's sad to say, I was the only man on that executive. And when I went to the national conference in Tala last year of the older persons councils around Ireland, at the meal one evening, there were 220 people. I counted the people at the tables. And a guy called Professor Ronan Collins from Tala Hospital, wonderful speaker, gave a speech. And I went up to talk to him, and I pointed out to the crowd and said, Ronan, out there, among those 220 people here, there's less than 20 men. And of those, a number of those people are here in their official capacity. They're not here, let's say, as men themselves. So men don't represent, their voices are not being brought to the table in terms of creating a narrative about what men need in their health. Now, this is no criticism of the women, because in fact, both in the older persons executive and at that event, I mean, I met women, and the ultimate thing is, those women were there representing the needs of the men in their lives to a large degree. And I mean, they were wonderful and inclusive and were really crying out for men to get involved. But my challenge to men is that you've left the care of your own health to the women in your lives. And that's not fair on those women, because it's not their job to be looking after you any more than it is for you to be looking after them. But it also means that the language and expression of what men need is not being captured because men are not out there expressing themselves. So men's sheds are a potential for guys to get together and maybe by checking in with each other, find out more about who they are, what they want, and be able to express those and to bring those to the national planning phase so that their needs are brought to the table. So we've just been working for about 10 minutes, guys, right? I'm not knackered, but I'm a bit warmer. I encourage you, if you listen to this video, one, please subscribe to my video by clicking down below if you're interested in this sort of stuff. And ask yourself, the point I make is, if men's sheds matter, then men's sheds matter. And I think that's important because as we move forward, the small sheds around the country, etc., the advantage of coming together as a collective, and that's an association of peer sheds who work together in a collaborative and communicative way and who elect their own representatives to bring their story into the national space. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed a bit of a walk. I think we're going to have, just for a minute, I think I'll have a little break. Sudden stop. Right, well, after that bit of exercise and reflection, and I'm still very cold, my hands are very cold, I thought I'd sing a little song. That's one thing we do on a Monday night here. We have a singing group, a mixture of men and women called Metal Kyo, who sing here every Monday night in a round table singing circle. So if you're ever in the area in Guido and West Donegal on Monday night, you're absolutely welcome. And you know, one thing that's magic in terms of our lives is the power of song in terms of lifting your spirits. So this is a song that's age appropriate as I'm turning 70 in a couple of weeks' time. Captures a lot of where I'm at right now. Oh, the older I get, the more I think you only get a minute. Better live while you're in it, 'cause it's gone in a blink. And the older I get, the truer it is. It's the people you love, not the money and stuff that makes you rich. And if they found a fountain of youth, I wouldn't drink a drop, and that's the truth. Funny how it feels, I'm getting to my best years yet. The older I get, the fewer friends I have. But you don't need a lot. The ones that you've got have always got your back. And the older I get, the better I am at knowing when to give and when to just not give a damn. And if they found a fountain of youth, I wouldn't drink a drop, and that's the truth. Funny how it feels, I'm getting to my best years yet. The older I get, and I don't mind all of the lines from all the times I've laughed and cried. Souvenir, the little signs of the life I've lived. Oh, the older I get, the longer I pray. I don't know why, I guess that I got more to say. And the older I get, the more thankful I feel for the life I've had and all the life I'm living still. So look, if you've enjoyed the video, please subscribe. Maybe have a thought about some of the bigger issues that face men's sheds going forward. Too serious not to be organised in a proper way, and really more important, why don't you get down and visit your local shed, become a member. Maybe if you're a woman, send your friend, your husband, your son, your brother, whatever. Great place to be. Thanks.